Thank you everyone for joining the call. Good afternoon to all. So you are in this call basically because you are nominated as the partner in our Microsoft Security Expert Program. So in today's call, it's all about QS solution training, whereby we will be introducing to you our CSAT assessment scan. So Dennis, would you like to go to the next slide?
Yep, absolutely. And good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining the call today. And you want to do some more intro, Edna? Sorry to take over so quickly.
Oh, no worries.
Okay.
So basically, this is a cybersecurity assessment tool. So why is it important in our MS Expert program? Is because we would like to make use of this kind of assessment tools to help you to get insight into your customers' cybersecurity risk evaluation, so that we will be able to cross-sell or upsell them into other solutions that we will be able to help them mitigate their risk in terms of cybersecurity. Dennis, next. All right, so I think I will introduce Dennis. Dennis is from QS Solution, so he is our go-to person whenever we need help, and he is the one who always is there to help us in terms of if we have any question on CSAT or any other partner enablement that we are required. Dennis is the one who is in QS Solution, who are our go-to person. So without further ado, let me pass on to Dennis to walk you through today's agenda.
Yep, thanks Edna, and good afternoon again, everyone. Thanks for joining the call. Today we will discuss the cybersecurity assessment tool, an IP solution from QS Solutions. QS Solutions is a global ISV, an independent software vendor, developing security and governance solutions, mostly in the Microsoft ecosystem. And one of the solutions is the CSAT. We will discuss today the concept, where does the CSAT come from, what is the value proposition, how can you execute those assessments, and what are the deliverables. I will also walk you through a short high-level demonstration of the product, so you get a feeling of what the user interface looks like and how the system is set up. And then we will talk a little bit about some of the best practices and how we can onboard you successfully as a partner. What are the steps that we can take with you, and what are the next actions as part of this program. By the way, if there are any questions, I can see the IM window. So if you have questions, don't hesitate, just drop them in the chat, and I will make sure to pause at some moments. And if I don't, Edna, maybe you can stop me and ask the questions, or at least let me know that there are questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So let's start. And let's start with a little bit of background. Why cybersecurity assessment tool? Why is this solution on the market? Why do we develop it? And the background can be found in mostly the view that we have on how organizations decide or do not decide to improve their security. So we see that many organizations today are talking about security. They have that gut feeling that they need to improve security, especially if you talk about the mid-sized organizations, small to mid-sized organizations. In many cases, there is no technical expertise in-house, or at least limited technical expertise. And they talk about security in a management board. And they need to figure out what security areas to improve in. That's quite difficult to do. So in many cases, organizations try to figure out where to put their limited IT and security funds, which is difficult to do because of the lack of insight into the current security position of the client. That's what these assessments are built for, to give the customer the insights they need to make an informed decision to improve their security. So it's really a fact-based risk assessment or security assessment to show the client where they have pretty good security in place, but also show them the areas where they are at risk and show them what remediations they can do to increase their overall cybersecurity maturity. And you can imagine that talking about remediations and security improvements, very quickly you get to implementing software solutions and technology, of course, where obviously there is also some aspects which are more organizational policies and procedures. But of course, there is also the part where you need to enforce those policies and procedures, and then you get back to automation with software. So that's also why we are part of the Microsoft Security Expert Program with Ingram Micro, because these type of assessments will help you to effectively sell the security portfolio of Microsoft and your managed services around security. Whether that's Microsoft 365 security, Azure security, even Azure migrations and increasing the Azure revenue of your clients and upselling the M365 SKUs. Those are all scenarios that can perfectly work after a cybersecurity assessment. So it's a great way to initiate your sales and to initiate the sometimes difficult security topics and conversations with a client. If we make that a little bit more visual, then you should know that we're always talking about a hybrid IT environment here, right? So we take the perspective that clients today have on-prem servers, a local Active Directory. They have workstations that people work with. They work from the office, they work from home, basically anywhere on the world. They access local resources, but also cloud resources like Office 365. And they also invite external users like clients, suppliers, to gain access to those storage locations. For example, Office 365, where the sharing capabilities are great, of course. So taking this all into consideration, we have to conclude that this is a very complex environment, which is growing in complexity every day, simply because of the reason that we are working in this environment. We're being active, we're creating new storage locations, new documents, inviting new users, creating new users, hiring new employees. So it's a very active environment. And to figure out where the security risks lie in this complex environment is quite difficult. Nevertheless, there is a great portfolio for security in the market. And we can talk about Microsoft. There is examples of Microsoft tools in this slide, but just if you take the broader perspective too, over the last 5 to 7 years, there's been a great development on cloud security products, which enhance security while not harming the overall productivity of an end user. And I think that's the balance that every organization is trying to balance on. Between those two areas. Those Microsoft products, for example, if you look at the way we sell those cloud security tools, very often we try to sell it based on the product features, product functionality. So with we, I mean the IT channel as a whole. We often go to clients and we show them how the product works. We show them a proof of concept. We spend pre-sales consultancy to run a proof of concept with them or a pilot, trying to convince them of the need and the urgency to implement these solutions, to purchase the licenses, to purchase your services and managed services on these products. And this resonates well with people with an IT background, but especially the persons on business management on the client side. They might like the product, but they don't get that urgency they need to really start purchasing. And we would like to shift that conversation to a more risk-based and fact-based approach, where you, based on the CSAT outcomes, you show the client what potential vulnerabilities they have in their environment. And then from there, from positioning the risk, go to the solution, where you basically already made the business case by presenting the risk, and then you can start presenting the solution where everybody already knows they need such a solution. The only choice is, do I need this one? Right? So you can really focus on the security areas where the client has a need, instead of basically trying to figure out by presenting lots of solutions which one resonates well. And this way you really know, okay, this is most important area for this client. So we focus on this solution, and you can basically build a roadmap for the client to do certain activities over the course of the next 3 months or half year or so. So that's a short introduction on the concept of the cybersecurity assessment tool. It is proven technology. We've been partnering with Microsoft for the last 4 years to conduct cybersecurity assessments in their managed segment, in enterprise and corporate segment, and over the past 2.5 years, also partnering with Ingram to perform assessments mostly in the small to mid-sized markets through the reseller channel of Ingram. There is really proven return of investment of these assessments. There is a great contribution from these assessments towards selling the Microsoft platform as a whole. Right? So I take it that many of you will be familiar with it. Sometimes difficult sales pitches when you need to pitch one product to another, where Microsoft is actually having the USP in the best of breed solutions. Right? So they have a comprehensive platform. So you want to have a more holistic approach on security to be able to sell Microsoft security, and to basically become the client's security advisor on all aspects instead of only one solution. The scenarios where CSAT is used, it varies quite a lot actually. So it varies between clients with an existing on-prem infrastructure, maybe no cloud at all. So you start the cloud journey off the back of a security assessment, showing them where the security risks in their on-prem infrastructure lie, and use those risks to position the cloud security tools, because there's many risks in the on-prem environment that you cannot really solve by using traditional security tools. So you need to go for the cloud security tools. And maybe just all the way on the other side of the whole spectrum here, we see partners using this solution with clients who have an existing licensing on Microsoft 365 E5. They already have a bit of Azure running, maybe the data center is in Azure, and these clients are also receiving such an assessment to prioritize the implementation work. Right? There's so many security tools in the Microsoft 365 and Azure platform. You can never implement everything at once. So the question is, okay, what budget is needed and what priority, what are the risks that we cover here? What do we need to implement first? That's basically the spectrum in which these assessments are used, but you see there is also all of those in between scenarios. Office 365 users E1 upselling to E3, or increasing ACR, the Azure consumed revenue, by using security as a topic in Azure. Let's take a step forward and talk a little bit more about the technology of CSAT. So what are we talking about here? And the first thing you should know is that CSAT is not a cloud solution. It is in fact a solution which runs within the IT infrastructure of a client, which means that all of the data which is collected by the CSAT stays within the client's domain, within their infrastructure. So basically, you install the CSAT on a machine of the client. They prepare a server or even a workstation is fine. Windows 10 workstation, you can install the CSAT on that device, and then from there you can go into a web interface. I will show you the interface later during this presentation in a couple of slides. And then from that user interface, you can set up the different scans to the sources that you see on the left-hand side here. And so that's from the technical scanning perspective. We can go to the Microsoft Cloud environment, connect to the Microsoft Cloud environment using the Graph API. We can also do a comprehensive scan on anything that has a Windows operating system. So we can scan the endpoints there. So both workstations as well as servers. The way we connect to those devices, basically two methodologies. One would be to reach out to those endpoints using the WMI protocol. So you can reach out to all the endpoints and the Windows machines that are active locally, switched on, attached to the network. And then we run a dissolvable agent. So a small executable, which is distributed through the WMI protocol. It runs the scan, and then it sends back the data to the CSAT server, which sits in the infrastructure of the client, storing all the data locally. Another methodology is to use an RMM solution, a remote management solution, with which you run a set of PowerShell scripts to do the same, to basically run that executable, then retrieve back the data and send it to the CSAT server. So that's also an opportunity there to collect information remotely, especially in the working from home scenario. You prefer to do the scan that way, but many clients don't have that remote management solution yet. So then you're focused on the local scan. The good thing is for these type of assessments, you don't need 100% coverage, right? So you can take a sample of the endpoints. That's sufficient information to work out the client's cybersecurity maturity. We are not engaging, or the purpose of this assessment is not to give line by line the risks per machine. No, it's the overall risk that we are looking for, and how they manage those risks. How do they monitor those devices? How do they ensure that those risks do not occur or cannot occur on those devices? Then also you see a local Active Directory. We can even scan the SharePoint on-prem environment of a client. And we do some checks on the email DNS, like the SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. So basically the email spoofing records, to see if that's properly configured. A lot of data from those sources, all populated and presented in an easy interface in the CSAT. And this is already a good basis and fundament on which you can draw conclusions. Nevertheless, if we talk about security, we also should talk about organizational policies and procedures. So therefore, there is a questionnaire in the CSAT solution, which, if you have done the scans and you have all the data available, you talk about a set of different controls with the client. And the data is great input. So just to give you one example, if you talk with the client about the on and offboarding procedures of new employees and employees leaving the organization, how does that procedure look like? How do you ensure people have the right access and that you remove the access in time? You can perfectly use the data from, for example, the Active Directory in the discussions with the client. So to ensure that what is written on paper in terms of policies and procedures is also showing in the actual data, in the practice. So after running the scans, performing an interview to answer the questionnaire, you get to the part where we do reporting, in which the CSAT will generate a comprehensive report, a Word document, and a management presentation in PowerPoint. Both of these files are about 80% finalized. We do still rely on human intelligence to interpret technical data together with organizational policies and procedures. Probably as a consultant and as a salesperson, you have a lot of background knowledge of what happened with this client. This is background knowledge which should be used in these assessments and in these reports. So we have good instructions in these reports and presentations on how to finalize it, to ensure that you really build a report which is in line with the discussions that you have had so far with the client, but also with your business model. We map everything to the Microsoft security reference architecture, but it's important that if you map it to your business model, make sure to address exactly your services and managed services into the reporting.
All right. Dennis, there is a question, but I believe at your part of this slide you have explained it already. So there is a question on what are the standard policy to be implemented with security. So I think Dennis, just now you mentioned about the report that will be generated and the background knowledge of the salespeople would be something that we have to come together to give a standard policy reports back to the customer.
Yeah, so it's an interpretation for the sales team, but obviously the tool and the framework which is being used, and I will get to that in 2 slides. The framework is also guiding what policies are most important and what not.
All right.
Right. So there's definitely some policies which are most important, and that's the first, basic security hygiene. I will come back to it in 2 slides to answer that question.
All right.
And so what does a report look like? And you see some sample screenshots from the report and management presentation here, which, by the way, can fully be customized to your look and feel. So if you feel, okay, hey, I want to add my logo into it, I want to change the order of the chapters, I would like to add some additional questions into the questionnaire because I feel there is this area where we focus on as a partner very much. It's not getting enough attention in this framework. There is definitely ways to customize this and to make a perfect fit with your business model. And that's also one of the key things we are supporting you with. So from the vendor side, we will work with you in this program to ensure that there is a fit and that we go through the training, etc. I will come back to that later on. But here you see also on the left-hand side that we use a controls framework in which we score clients on certain topics on a scale of 1 to 4. 1 means nothing is implemented. There's no security controls. A 4 means I have security implemented very well. I have monitoring, alerting. I have senior management who takes responsibility for this topic. That would be a 4. Doesn't necessarily mean that every client should chase and should aim for that 4, right? So it's a matter of getting this view and getting this insight and deciding what is a reasonable risk for our organization, which is a decision that almost no client is making right now because they don't have the insight. They don't have the insight into what risk they are currently taking and what topics we should talk about. So that's the first part. On the right-hand side, you see some slides from the management presentation where obviously there are some scan findings which will help you to show the actual risk. There are some recommendations around quick wins. What can clients do today? Basically, limit the time and effort. And then a suggested action plan, for example, for the first 30 days, and then you have another slide for the next quarter, for example, to show the client how you can also help them with the remediations. To ensure that this assessment is a good fit for any client, we decided to work with 2 types of assessments. There is the CSAT FullScan assessment, which you see on the left-hand side, and the QuickScan assessment on the right-hand side. The FullScan assessment is really used cross-segment with organizations of many different sizes, but mostly organizations who have a high need for a compliance framework or a high need for security. Typically organizations in a heavily regulated industry or holding many sensitive information, or organizations above 300 employees, because if you're that size, it's about time that you take a serious security framework. The framework which is used in the FullScan assessments is the CIS framework, the Center for Internet Security. I'm sure during the Microsoft trainings that you will go through as part of this Microsoft Security Expert program, they will also talk about the CIS framework. It's a really well-established framework, internationally recognized framework. And this framework holds 20 different topics on which a client is measured, both from a policy perspective using the questionnaire, as well as a technical perspective using the technical data input. And we attach the zero trust architecture to help the client basically lay out their security strategy. So we use the CIS framework as the way to do the assessment, and then zero trust is the way to position the remediations and the strategy with the client to help them build a zero trust framework and architecture in their organization. That's the FullScan assessment. We also have a QuickScan assessment, which is really aimed at small to mid-sized organizations. I know I'm talking with a lot of Australian organizations here and New Zealand, APAC. I know SMB is defined here by the US. I'm from the Netherlands myself, so I feel you. If we talk with organizations of 200 employees, for us that's already corporate organizations. But nevertheless, this QuickScan can be used with organizations who want to have a quick check of their basic security hygiene. Right? So it's smaller organizations, less of a need to go in depth on security, where you just want to make sure that the basic hygiene, the fundament, is implemented correctly. That's where you can use the QuickScan. The FullScan with those type of organizations could be too overwhelming, too comprehensive, where the QuickScan is providing the right information. Also, in terms of pricing, there is a difference between the two assessments actually, and also in the engagement effort, because with a FullScan assessment, your engagement effort from a consultancy perspective, you spend around 3 working days to perform the assessment. On the QuickScan, you spend around 4 hours to perform the assessment. Both of these time frames is after the training, so the first 1 or 2 times you probably need a little bit more time, especially for the QuickScan assessment. But once you're up and running, within half a day of your time, you can perform a QuickScan assessment. I see no more questions for now, so I would like to quickly drop this presentation and take you through a high-level demonstration of the cybersecurity assessment tool. So I will stop presenting this deck. We will continue there in a few minutes, and I will show you the user interface of the cybersecurity assessment tool. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
All right. So what you see here is the user interface of the CSAT. As mentioned before, this runs with the client, right? So this is an online demo environment. We can give you access to this demo environment too, so you can have a look around and play with it yourself, see the detailed data later on. But this environment normally is running on a machine in the client's environment. How does it work? Well, you see the 5 different components with services and endpoints. That's where you basically can set up the different scans. Then all of the data, it comes back in the analysis screens. We have a questionnaire available and a couple of reporting screens. And this is also the place where you can generate the first draft of your comprehensive report and presentation, the management presentation. So yeah, if we go through these screens, let's start off at the beginning. On the services side, here you see on the left-hand side the different services that you can connect to. The first one is the local Active Directory. You see it here, and basically, if you click the new button, you need to provide certain information depending on the service, right? So in this case, we're talking about Active Directory. So what do you provide here? You provide the Active Directory domain name together with at least a domain user account to be able to retrieve the security data from the Active Directory. And you can scan one domain, but if they have a forest, you just enter the top domain, and then all of the subdomains will automatically be scanned if you use the switch. So there is a couple of options here to switch on and off. basically you save this information, and you can work through this assessment, by the way, with the client. Also, just as I'm sharing my screen, the client could share their screen, and you can walk the client through the setup. So it's really really easy, even if you're using this for client recruitment. If you don't have the access to their infrastructure yet, you can just walk through the system with the client and allow them and help them to configure the system properly. Save the entry. You get an entry like this. Perform the scan using the scan button. So it's very straightforward on this side for the local Active Directory. But if we talk about the Microsoft Cloud, same thing. Here you see that we are using the Graph API. So you're not providing a username and password here, but basically you're creating an Azure AD application, which gives back an application ID and application secret, the way and the means for CSAT to connect to the client's infrastructure. On the right-hand side, you also see that you can fill in some keywords. These keywords are used to search inside documents in Office 365. So basically, you can customize these keywords. You can make it customer specific. And the keywords here, just let's take the example of the first one, password. 50% of the documents do not contain any password. It's just a password policy document, for example. But the other 50%, that's really documents where passwords are stored. It's the service desk has a Excel spreadsheet with all the service accounts and the passwords in there. So yeah, many different pieces of information you can come across here. It creates great awareness with clients that sensitive information, it's not only stored in databases, it's also stored in documents, in unstructured data, and you need to figure out how to get control of this. Yeah, so it's a great lead for employee awareness training, but also around document encryption and security. So yeah, you set up this Microsoft Cloud scan, then again, hit the scan button here to run the scan, and you can go through to the next phase, basically, which is analysis, right? So you can do multiple scans there. I'm not covering everything today. I'm happy to go more in depth in a one-on-one session later on. On the analysis side, you see in the left-hand menu, you see many different entries. I'm showing you a demo of the FullScan environment, by the way. With QuickScan, there is less functionality, less data entries. We're really covering the basic security hygiene as discussed before. But in any of the assessments, you see that this overview here, where we have machines, we have an operating system, which is displaying. We show you the antivirus status, the SMB version, version 1, if that's used, if it's disabled, yes or no. Obviously, it's a very old protocol with known vulnerabilities, so you would like to see that switched off on both the client and server side. And all the way on the right-hand side, you also see an automated threat column, which is generated by the system. This threat column will help you to focus on the machines which have a potential vulnerability, right? So it's really useful to use this threat column to focus on some of the machines, go in depth on this machine to figure out more, to check, for example, what applications are installed here. And here we even use the NIST CPE database to look for out-of-date applications, software, or software which has known vulnerabilities. This is marked based on the NIST CPE list. You can look it up per machine, but obviously it would be more useful to also review it on an aggregated level. You see that here. So you can really check out what software is being used in this client environment. This is just a demo interface, but I'm sure you will come across many weird software solutions if you run this with a real client. And you can talk about software whitelisting, blacklisting, how to get more control of what applications are being used and should not be used. Same goes for missing updates. So CSAT is checking what machines have missing updates, what type of missing updates are we talking about, critical updates or just the latest patches, and the patch management process is rolling, but you just have some minor patches to be done. So that's explaining you about the patch management process, or for example, secure configuration, right? Where again, we're balancing between a written policy. There is a policy for secure configuration. We have a policy on how servers and VMs should be hardened. Do we apply it to? That's the next question. And this is great input for such a discussion. Then we skip through to the Active Directory, the local Active Directory or directories, if that's the case. And here you can easily see the usernames, some basic security information. Is it an enabled account? Does it have an admin account? What is the last logon date or the date the password was last set, and even the bad password attempts, right? So again, there is an automated threat level which is generated by the system to help you focus on some of the accounts. But yeah, it's pretty easy. For example, you see this guest account here. There's even the setting password is not required turned on. So potentially this guest account could log in without a password. Good thing it's not enabled at this point in time, but it's worth looking into, and you want to prevent these unnamed accounts, of course. So a lot of input here around identity and access management. Password policy is also pulled from the local Active Directory, so you can review the policy here. It's also displayed in a little bit more user-friendly way in the reports. So then it's really written out instead of these figures. Then we go to the cloud part, where we have an extensive list on the Azure part. So we connect through the Graph API to the Azure AD, but also the Azure platform itself. So we can review the security settings if clients are running Azure as their data center, or they have some services running in Azure. We can also review the security configuration of those services. Just to show you some of the screens, this one shows and presents the Azure AD external users. So you can quickly see what external users have access to company resources, potentially in Office 365. What you would like to prevent is that people are invited on non-business addresses like Outlook.com, because those accesses will stay there forever. Nobody's removing that account. But if you invite me on my QS Solutions account, once I leave the organization at some point, well, then I hope QS Solutions will remove my account, will disable, and I can no longer access your resources too. So that's the first step already. Ensure that there is a B2B setup and not inviting people on their personal email addresses. But yeah, on the Azure side, there is far more. We also pull the Azure Security Center recommendations. We look at the storage accounts in Azure to see what the public access settings are, or we look at the SQL databases to look at the data encryption of the databases or the Azure SQL instances. We also review conditional access policies and provide recommendations on these conditional access policies. Right, so many clients are starting to use these conditional access policies, but the quality of the configuration obviously also gives the security level presents the security level. And the same thing for Endpoint Manager, for example, right? Where if you implement Microsoft Intune, that's a great step forward towards managing machines in a better way. But the question is, are those devices compliant? And then the next question is, to what compliance policy? Right, so we also go in depth in the Microsoft platform to not just do the easy stuff, but also really go in depth to figure out how you can improve a compliance policy, for example, and the recommendations are provided here. On the Office 365 part, an interesting view is the MFA settings. So here you can quickly get a view on the MFA status of the different users, or on the SharePoint Online side. This is basically a continued screen after the Azure AD external users. This is displaying where those users have access. So it could be SharePoint side, it could be Teams, it could be individual documents that were shared with these persons, and also displaying the permission level that was provided on these documents. A lot of data. I'm sure I skipped through some interesting screens. I'm happy to talk it over at a later point in time in a one-on-one call. But I hope you get the perspective that there is a lot of data here which can be used also in discussing the policies and procedures. Right, so there is some immediate conclusions you can draw from this data, but also using the data in a questionnaire, where I'm currently showing you the FullScan environment. So we're talking about the CIS framework here. Per topic, there's a number of questions. And if we take a look at the questions, there is a question, there is a bit of help text to guide the conversation, and then you score a client on a framework from 1 to 4 in line with those maturity scores that we discussed earlier, where basically you start on level 4. If that's not applicable, you go back to 1, where 1 means no security controls implemented on this topic. Now you can add notes on the right-hand side, for example, stating, hey, yeah, in terms of procedures and policies, the client would score a 3, but looking at the actual data facts, we're scoring a 2 because it's not properly implemented in practice. And that gets you to the reporting phase, where there are some screens in which the information that we reviewed in the analysis screens is summarized. It's an aggregated view here. So you see the numbers, how many endpoints with out-of-date antivirus definitions, how many endpoints with SMB version 1 enabled or incoming RDP enabled. Those type of settings, you can quickly review the numbers here. And these tables will also be exported into the presentations and the documents. Or you can review those maturity scores. You can review them here. You can see the different scores on the different controls. You can even review and compare it against a previous assessment. So you can really see the different security improvements here, or sometimes a decline, right? If you do add some new services into your IT infrastructure, but you don't bring them in line with the existing security policies, well, maybe you take one step back at some of these controls too. So it's also a really nice solution to use on a periodical basis, to start delivering periodical security assessments to track the progress over time, and to make sure that you also present back to the business side of the client's organization what the impact is of spending their limited security budget, which is difficult to present because very often IT and security departments come with technical arguments why there is such an improvement, where in fact you need to show them the decreased risks or the increased cybersecurity maturities. I see there's one question. Using the app locker would be reported here as well. Yeah, so if clients are using app locker, for example, that would be reported here as well, like many other solutions, right? So we have a part where we rely on the technical scanning, but the technical scanning can always be overruled by answers of the questionnaire. So if they use third-party solutions, not Microsoft, not for multi-factor authentication, for example, then it would show MFA switched off. But if we in the questionnaire discuss the topic around two-factor authentication, you can still show in the processes and the maturity that they have another solution in place, and you can add that into the notes too. So there will always be a way to show what type of technology is used. Then the final step in this interface, basically in performing an assessment, is to generate the first draft of your report and presentation. And by clicking this button, the CSAT starts combining all the data from the environment, and it will place it inside a Word template. This Word template, as we discussed, you can modify it, you can add your company logo into, make sure that it's branded in your look and feel. And then the CSAT will capture the data, position it in the report, and then there are instructions in the report to guide you in towards the final version of the report, where to write some additional recommendations, where to review the predefined recommendations, and also where to position the action plan that you would like to go through with the client. Happy to share sample reports, happy to share the access to this demo environment. But for now, let's go back to the presentation again. And I will tell you a little bit more, resume, about the value statements and also about the commercial model and the best practices of this to implement this solution. I touched on this a couple of times, but to me, and also the feedback that we hear most from end customers, is that they find these reports really useful in deciding what security projects they should run first, to really prioritize and to also make those decisions, not just from the IT and security side of the business, but make those decisions based on one common truth with business management involved. I think that's also looking at the business of managed service providers. In many cases, you are the IT and security department of the client, and you need to convince business management. So this is the perfect solution to have that discussion on a management level, instead of trying to talk about technology with people who don't understand technology. Right? So it's the perfect way to start the difficult security conversations, and to have a fundament on which you can base the cybersecurity program of a client. For you as a partner, these type of assessments will create endless opportunities. Right? There is no way that we can implement all of the security at once. The IT landscape is changing over time. So by running periodical assessments using this solution, you make sure that you stay close with your client. You make sure that you have a good engagement intensity with the client. You become their trusted IT and security advisor, and you keep educating them on new security risks. You can keep defining new projects, new initiatives to keep the security of the client in line with whatever is going on in the outside world. Yeah, and this covers both the modern workplace side as well as the infrastructure side. So it's also a perfect way to create opportunities to migrate their old data center towards Azure, enhance the security in the Azure platform. So it's really a holistic security assessment covering security, not just on the modern workplace side, but also on the infrastructure side or application, on the data side, etc. Then, if we look at the pricing, we basically, as I'm sure you all remember, we have the QuickScan and we have a FullScan function of our solution. If we look at the QuickScan pricing, you will see in the marketplaces, in most marketplaces, by the way. So we're currently rolling out in some marketplaces in Southeast Asia. I hope we get there before the end of the year, but we're expecting the release end of this month, beginning of December. And so if there's questions about licensing, then don't hesitate and reach out to the Ingram Micro folks. I'm sure they can advise you accordingly. But basically, there is 3 products per type of assessment. For QuickScan, you see 3 products listed in the marketplace. you see a very straightforward one, QuickScan one-time assessment. That's running one assessment at one individual client. Right? The cost of this is 350 euros. That would be around 580 Australian dollars. And it allows you to run one assessment at a client up to 300 employees. Then product number 2 and 3 are basically partner subscriptions, which you can purchase as a partner, which will allow you to run an unlimited number of CSAT assessments. The difference between 2 and 3 is that number 2 allows you to run an unlimited number of one-time assessments. What do we mean with one time? One time means that every unique client can only receive one assessment throughout the year. Where if you take the third product here, the third SKU, it allows you to do unlimited assessment at an unlimited number of clients. So even if you use the CSAT for periodical services, for managed services, you can use that third SKU here. The same 3 SKUs are also made available for FullScan. So basically you can start small, you can start purchasing one FullScan, and by the time you generate pipeline, you can also go for one of the partner subscriptions here. Good thing is, you're all part of the MS Expert program, so there is a benefit for you. I will come back to it at the end of this presentation. If we look at a partner success case, basically they were also part of the Microsoft Expert program in the previous program. They used the CSAT as part of that program to build their security assessment portfolio and solution. They experienced the value of CSAT, and from there they purchased the unlimited subscription. What is the key to success here, to quickly build the security assessment service in your organization? Well, to me, it's also taking the time to look at the reports and to figure out how it maps to your business model. Because eventually, if you ensure that your business model is connected the right way, well, we connect to the Microsoft reference architecture. So all the solutions in the Microsoft security reference architecture, we will ensure that this is being recommended. But if you have a service where you combine Microsoft Intune together with conditional access, together with Defender for Endpoint, well, make sure to mention your service instead of the three separate products, because that resonates well with the client. It's easier for you to make the upsell if you make some minor changes into the report to make it in line with your business model. So I think that's one of the keys that, and we are happy to work with you on those adjustments. But I think that's an important step here. This is a sample case where it's good to understand that the ROI not just lies in selling this assessment. I know there's partners having different strategies here. Some partners, basically sell this at a bargain. Sometimes partners even decide for their long-term clients they would like to run this free of charge as part of an existing managed service, for example. But it's not just the value of this assessment and the revenue from this assessment alone. It's also the revenue that gets generated from this assessment. And here you see an average opportunity size, which was created by running a QuickScan on a client with about 100 seats. You get to around 43K in dollars, American dollars, in terms of revenue. Right. So it's the assessment itself is a very valuable exercise. It's a valuable exercise to go through with the client to show them the reports, but also from a commercial perspective, you can make a margin on the assessment itself, but also on the upsell opportunities. To close off, I would like to show you this partner onboarding process. So here you see how we take you through the different steps. We really would like to engage with you to have an introduction call, to meet in person. I will share a slide with our names on it, so you can reach out, or you can schedule the call via your Ingram Micro contacts. I'm sure they can refer you to us. And from there, we would like to meet you, invite you to go through the self-training. There is a partner portal set up for you in which you can go through short e-learning. It takes about 2 hours of your time, quite a comprehensive training. And then from there, you can also use a NFR license to potentially test the CSAT, or you go straight into your first assessment, which can also be performed with remote support of QS Solutions as part of this program. So we are there to support you on the technical side, on the go-to-market side, happy to assist. You can obtain your vouchers up to 3 clients as part of this program. So in the MS Expert program, Ingram Micro is making available vouchers, free vouchers to use one-time assessments for both FullScan and QuickScan, up to 3 vouchers per partner, and it's first come, first serve. So make sure to get those vouchers quickly, figure out what clients you would like to run these assessments with, and then you can claim those vouchers using this URL. And in parallel, or maybe first, have a call with our team. My name is Dennis Dols. I'm in the bottom left-hand corner of this slide. And with me, my colleague Ella, she's also in the call. The 2 of us are handling the Asia Pacific region. So yeah, we would welcome your feedback. We would welcome the opportunity to have a chat with you. Really meet in person, define the go-to-market strategy with you, and collaborate on these cybersecurity assessments. And with that, I would like to say thank you. Thanks for listening in. It was a pleasure presenting to you. I hope we meet in person. Feel free to reach out to us via Ingram Micro or directly. And I wish you all a wonderful afternoon. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Dennis. So
Thanks, Edna.
over here, please reach out to your in-country Ingram representative to start nominating your end user and start claiming your vouchers. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.